Hello, beautiful boss babes. Are you ready to chase life with Kelly? Well, I'm your host, Kelly Chase, and I'm so excited you're here. We are going to talk about all things love, dating, relationships, money mindset. We're going to dive deep into self-love, worthiness. I am going to bring on some incredibly empowering guests. We're going to have fun, we're going to laugh, and perhaps we're even going to shed some tears together. I am here to empower you, inspire you, and motivate you to create the life you crave. I am so excited for today's episode. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the show. Today's guest, you may have actually already heard from him if you tuned into season 1 of Chase Life with Kelly podcast. So today I have Lance Essihos.
Close enough. Yeah, perfect.
Did I just butcher it?
No. Essihos, tomato, whatever.
Oh, Essihos. Okay, that was pretty good. That was pretty close. Anyway, so he is the podcast host of University of Adversity podcast, and then he is also a recent new author of Mastering Adversity. So I'm so excited to welcome back to the show because we're going to dive into all kinds of things because we always have random things to talk about. So, but let's first, hello, Lance. Welcome.
Hey, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this. A lot has changed since we last chatted.
I know, because it was probably, well, I mean, you and I have talked offline, but I mean, since the podcast, it was like a year ago, I think.
It must have, was it a year ago or more? Maybe it was about a year ago.
Probably a little over a year ago. Mm-hmm.
What is time anyway?
I know, right? Seriously, there's so many things. I mean, you've written a book. You've had incredible guests on your podcast that continues to grow. You yourself you're just evolving and expanding. And what we were talking about prior to hitting the record button is like, we kind of are our own worst critics for one, but we don't see our journey as growing as quickly as maybe others may see our journey growing.
Yeah. It's so true. When we're creating, as an entrepreneur or author or whatever it is, when you're doing the day-to-day things, sometimes you don't realize, what you're actually, the impact we're making, right? You only see your life as you see it. So there's the inner critic, there's the comparison of others and where you should be. And it's, and you don't get a lot of feedback from people, right? It's just in general. So you don't know sometimes, like, I know for me, sometimes I question, like, am I impacting enough people? Is my message getting out there? Mm-hmm. But then, you'll hear from somebody and you're like, okay, that's why I do this. Right. And I think that's why this journey is so important, is that we just have to remember that the long game and like what we're doing is like, you're planting these seeds and you're doing the best you can. And, whatever comes out of it is whatever comes out of it. But sometimes it is tricky because we don't really know, or we can't really see ourselves what kind of impact we're making. So it can be challenging at times.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. I'm like, I don't know sometimes. And I was so in my head ever since Love is Blind came out, it's crazy. I know, I'm sure I've talked to you about this before, but like I was so in my head about, and it just like, it literally this last like 7 months, it has all just came to of like what, like an understanding of what was going on. But basically, it's like I was comparing myself to like other reality people from my show, from other shows, my engagement, their engagement, like all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, I'm so like, quote unquote brainwashed, I guess, into the coaching space, because that's what I've been doing for so long. And it's like, we practice and preach, like, your engagement doesn't matter. You can make $1 million on 5 people, like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, like it's just creating the impact for one person. If you can change one person's life, right? But then that like likes and the engagement and all that was just like so daunting.
Yeah.
And it really, really got a hold of my brain for a long time. I mean, obviously me saying that, you guys may not have even seen that because I still was showing up as myself as much as possible, but I was having like inner struggle there. But then I read A New Earth and I was like, it just brought so much light to my life to be like, oh, it's because your like human self or your ego was like trying to take over and rule your world. And then you had your like spiritual self that was just like, stay in alignment, stay in alignment. You know what you're about, share your light, share your love, you know, and not try and be what everybody else is being.
You know? More like centered in your heart versus like your head, right? It's your truth. Your truth is your heart, and it's easy. And I've never thought about that as like being in reality TV, like how much you must compare yourself to other reality TV. And I was just thinking to myself, shit, that must be like, that must happen a lot. They're on this show or they're on that other show and comparing. Like, I mean, it makes sense because I do that with podcasting. I look and I'm like Lewis Howes or like Aubrey Marcus. I'm like, you know, it is real. And I think there's a benefit to it to an extent, to kind of as a way of looking at what's possible, but really it's useless because they have a completely different life, a completely different story. And you're only seeing in one aspect. You're seeing social media, but like there's just, and it could really bring you down. And that's great that you realize like how important it is to just like connect to yourself and your heart, because that's really what matters. And all the other stuff will look after itself.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely. And
I think we all go through that.
Yeah, but totally. I mean, it doesn't matter, like comparing, jealousy, anything like that, you know, or like, you know, just this like deep envy. It's not healthy. And again, what is it? Like, comparison's the thief of joy. Like it really was like, I was struggling so much internally for literally since the show came out. So that was over 2 years ago. But then, you know, finding out, that like my castmates were being casted for other shows. And I'm like, well, why wasn't I asked to be a part of things like that? You know, but then I had other opportunities and like, I have a podcast and I'm just like connecting. I don't know, like it really is like, we all have our own story. We all have our own journey, and like, just celebrate your own journey and stay on task with that. And I think like too, I was listening to some, I don't know, webinar the other day, and it just, another just like thought came to mind. And I'm like, you know what? When you're speaking more to your people, like and you're having people get to know you, like I'm probably the most active on my social media compared to any of my other castmates. Like I'm very vocal on there. You're on my stories all the time. And I feel like doing that helps you to just really significantly attract the right type of audience to you. So yes, have I lost followers, have I lost engagement, all that, but then there's this steady quantity of people that are tuning in day after day, you know? And I'm like, yes. Whereas a year ago, I'd be like, that's great, but I want more, you know? And it was, like I said, it was just like such an internal struggle for me. But now I'm like, great. I love the like 2,300 people that watch my stories every day. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
That's a lot. Good for you.
Good. I mean, I've had 50,000 before tune in.
That's crazy. Amazing. Yeah. What an interesting situation, because like initially you get all of these people just at once, and then you know, cause they see you as one way in the show, and then you start to show more of who you are. And then you notice that probably there's people that fade away. And then there's people that love you even more, and your own kind of rhythm and your own crew of like, but it's great because you do have that group of people that you can actually like test it out with. Like, here's how I am. Those of you that don't like me, go away. And those that do, but at least it's such a good way to like test in front of that audience to see, because then you can really weed them out. Right? You get that feedback. That's fantastic. I mean, like, I can't even imagine what that would have done. Would you go back? Like, would you go back to reality TV after going through that? Like, or is it something that I'm always curious about that.
In a different way. I mean, I would do another reality TV show. I mean, I've always, or just being, let me put it this way. I really enjoyed just the TV, like the production of everything and like being on camera. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be an actress. So, I mean, it's just like in me. I like being the center of attention sometimes. But yeah, I just like that. So I would essentially, I mean, I would love to start taking like actual like acting classes and actually get into more of like the film industry. Cause I think that's just, I don't know, a part of me. Like if I don't like, it's like, if I don't do it before I die, like, at least try. But yeah, I mean, another like reality show, maybe like a game show or something like that. I'm just not, it's so funny because granted, I would never have applied probably for Love is Blind. I make jokes. I'm like, oh, you guys need to like, nominate me to be on The Bachelor and stuff like that. I'm like, that is probably the last place I want to be now. Like I've heard just so much, it's just stupid now. Like it's just so dramatic and crazy. And I just don't think that, I mean, yeah, it gives you a lot of opportunities. It really can, but I just like don't think I'm just like not a drama person. I don't really watch reality TV shows. I would rather watch a sitcom or a drama series. I just am not. So why was I on a reality show? Who knows? But
well, I feel like most people that go on these reality shows like Bachelor or anything, do you really think that they're looking for love? Like, come on.
Right, like a smidge.
Like, give me a break. They're going on to like get that break. They don't like to say I'm going on for a break, but come on. Like, we all know what the outcome is. Like, you're going to have a ton of opportunity, which is awesome.
Awesome.
Like, it's not easy to get on those. So if you get on those, like, I think it's funny when people pretend like, oh, I'm not going on for that. I'm just going on to find love. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, even if I was, of course, like, finding love would be amazing on there, but I just find it hard to believe, like, especially like on The Bachelor. Like, your show was a bit different. It was definitely different than The Bachelor, right?
Yeah.
The Bachelor, I feel like it's way more about clout than it is about, like, with yours, like listening to people, not seeing them. Like that was cool. Yeah. I think that concept was cool, and it's different than just going into the Bachelor mansion and doing all that shit and, all the song and dance that's been going on for years, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's like,
yeah,
come on. I get it, but I don't know. It's just funny to think about.
I know it is. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I would, if I was presented the opportunity to do a reality show, I would, just depending on what it is. But I think, knowing what I know now, it would be better. It would be easier for me. And I would be like, okay, cool. Like, and I would probably, maybe I would ride the wave a little bit better than I did this last time.
I remember you were like, round 2, you're like, Lance, you should apply for that. And I was like, actually thinking about it. I was like, but then I don't know, with what was going on in the world, and it made it difficult to come to the States. And just like traveling it was chaos last year too.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about you. Let's first talk about your book. Let's talk about your book.
Sure.
Because that, I'm sure, was a challenge, was like good and bad. What were the pros and cons of writing a book?
Yeah, I mean,
this was your first book?
What's that?
This was your first book?
Yeah, this was my first book. And for all of your listeners out there, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have thought about what would it be like to write a book, right? Like, it seems like an impossible task, but I really believe after doing it that it's an essential piece of everybody's journey, because everybody has a story. Everyone has something to say. And I think a lot of people don't value that. So for me, I was kind of like thinking like, oh, how am I going to write this? I'm not a writer. That's what other people do. That's, the stories. It's the same with podcasting, the little bit of doubt in the beginning. But if you start to write every day, you are a writer.
Yeah.
Like, you write in a journal every day, you're a writer. Like, that's what it is. And then so I just started to, I knew I had to write a book and I had a lot to share. So the entire process was a lot harder than I thought, but it was the most cathartic, amazing experience. And like I was saying to you before, I know it's going to impact a lot of people.
Yeah.
But even if one person didn't read it, it was such a powerful transformational experience for me, having to go and revisit old stories that I really hadn't visited in a while, like going through stuff with losing my dad and like having to get that stuff and my brother on paper and type it out and like go deeper, even like viscerally, you can feel it again. And it's almost like moving through those moments. And it was like I needed to do that. But it's almost like, how do I express myself in a way that conveys the message that I'm feeling by story and going into it? And as I started to do that, it was very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to help me put things kind of to rest and change my relationship with certain things that had happened. And as I started to write, the formula of the book started to come out. It wasn't when I started to write, I just wrote. And then I knew the title and I knew what I needed to talk about. But that's why it's a beautiful thing, because once you just get going, you don't have to have it all figured out.
Right.
And that's a big takeaway for people as well. Anybody that is thinking about writing a book, is that you just need to start writing and follow the breadcrumbs. Because as you start to write, more stuff will come out. Obviously, you want to have a plan, you want to have an outline, but a lot changes. So I'm just saying, for me, a lot of how I thought the book would turn out, it completely was different and is way better than I ever thought. Mm. So I think, but a lot of people get stuck in how it should be. And if it's not this way, then it's no good. And there's just all this internal battle that I went through, even for crowdfunding to my publisher going out of business. So having to find a new publisher.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm going, with Samantha now, our mutual friend. There's been so many things along the way, pushing back the release date and just all the shit in between.
Mm-hmm.
Get to this place now where it's ready. And I'm just like, wow, what an experience. And it's called Mastering Adversity. And I feel like my entire choosing that title was like a blessing. And, it was tough, because I had to literally prove what I'm speaking about, like the method. I literally had to prove what I'm saying. It's not just like writing it and going, oh, I just wrote this, go and do it. It's like, it literally tested me on the entire formula of how I wrote the book and moving through adversity and all that. So yeah, it was powerful, and I'm really, really excited to share it with people. So yeah.
What would you say was, maybe, if you want to dive into this, what was maybe the hardest or most challenging story to write about, to work through and like relive maybe?
I think probably when I got the news that my younger brother had taken his own life, I got the news at work. I was working at a bar in Sydney, Australia, just a regular day. And I got a text message from my brother, and he's like, my older brother's like, hey, he told me the news. He's like, he took his own life. And I was like, what? It was a shock, to say the least.
Yeah. And
it just so happened that my dad was visiting me in Australia. I hadn't seen him in like 3.5 years, and he was at my house. So I knew he didn't have the internet hooked up or the phone hooked up. So I was like, oh, fuck. So I have to tell him. So that story of like finding out the news and then getting into the Uber ride and the feeling of, how am I going to tell my dad this? And just having to kind of go through that again, and even telling this story now, it's just it's a crazy moment in my life that was I don't want anybody to have to go through that, right? And just seeing the look on my dad's face when I told him what had happened, it changed everything. Mm-hmm. It changed everything in all of our lives. And, within that next year, my dad got cancer and passed away. And I believe at that moment when he found out that my younger brother had killed himself, that was kind of like the start of his decline, which was like what I talk about too. And we had a lot of loss in our family. We had about 6 or 7 people die in like 6 years. You know, and everybody's got loss. Everybody goes through a lot. And I'm not saying my story is any harder than anybody else's. But when it comes to writing a book, it's one thing to talk about it too on podcasts. Like I've told the story, but it was like, how do I write this?
Yeah.
Like how do I communicate this so that it really delivers? Because it's easy to do it for me in speaking, but trying to capture that in writing was real challenging for me, because it's like a completely different feeling, and you have to explain the stories, and you have to help people visualize what it was like in that moment to be there. So that was tough. And then, just figuring out like what it actually means to move through this shit, what's the formula for it? And yeah, it was tough. And I had to revisit some dark stories of my bar days, partying until 10 a.m. and going back to work, and just an absolute disaster of a human at times. It was just like, it was interesting, but it also just helped me put a lot of that to rest and give me peace to it. Because a lot of times when our past, this is a good tip for everybody, is that your past, regardless of what you've done, is just as important. The dark side of your past is just important as all the good stuff. And if we deny that, we're denying parts of ourselves. So you have to give that part love, and you can't be ashamed of it, because that shame is what perpetuates into your life. And sometimes people think they just want to hide from their old self or their old stories, and it doesn't help. So it's like, revisiting that and just completely looking at that as a unique part of who I am. And I had to just like accept that and share that with the world, because I talk about some shit that people are going to go, whoa, man, you're crazy. Especially like family. And like when it's one thing to talk about it on a podcast 2 years ago than it is to put it in a book that I know a lot of people are going to read.
Right.
And it's like, it's there. It's like,
yeah,
people I worked with are going to like, it's like, and I didn't put any names or anybody to get anybody in trouble, but there was a time where like I was doing shit like, and it was interesting. So the whole process of trying to express what you have inside onto paper and going into those deep, those moments that you're kind of ashamed of, and then bringing them to light so that people can see them.
Yeah.
That allows you it not to be as dark anymore. It's not going to have as much power over me, because I'm bringing it to the light, alchemizing it into the light. Right.
Love that.
So yeah, that's, when you have to share and get super vulnerable with people, and it's going to be out there, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah.
So
is it, scary? How much has your fear around the launch, diminished?
I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made a commitment into my life to just stop worrying about what other people think.
Yeah.
Like I care what people think, as far as like, I don't want to like purposely hurt somebody or harm them purposely. But if I'm afraid of being in truth with myself because it's going to make others uncomfortable, then I'm not living my truth. And that itself it's hard. And yeah, like, I guess the nerves of the book being out there and it's I don't know if that'll ever go away. I'm just kind of like, I'm okay with it. I'm already out there. I've had 385 episodes, or by the time this comes out, like over 400 or whatever, whatever episodes I have, I've shared it all. It's just like in a book, it's going to be, it's like, here you go.
I know when you can see it. Well, that's the thing. Like I always tell, anyone who I'm encouraging to like journal, it's like, you can think the thoughts all day long and like have this, mind journal going on. I said, but once you take that information, you put it on paper and you see what you're thinking, it is a whole different ball game of awareness.
It's so good for a human being.
Yeah.
To take that and put that on paper. It is like one of the most important things for transformation and healing is get that shit on paper.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're taking your thoughts and you're making it real on paper. And it sounds trivial, but it's really important.
Yeah.
Like it's really, really important for getting all of that. Like there's so many thoughts coming in and we got so much shit coming in from social media and so much from TV and Netflix and people's opinions. And there's all of this chaos going on. And it's hard to get to the real truth of who you are when you have all of that stuff in your mind, your subconscious mind. So when you start to write, it's almost like once you get all that out, then you allow the good stuff to flow in. It's like you're cleaning out the attic, and then it's like, oh, then you find that thing you've been looking for a while. Right? It's like that old box. You're like, where's that box full of all those amazing pictures or all those like treasures that we've had for a long time in the attic? But you got to clean out the attic, clean out all the crap, and then you're like, oh, I found it. And that's usually what happens. That's when the best insights, that's when the best ideas, it all comes, because then your intuition can speak to you.
Yeah. Because
it has room to breathe and you can listen to the whisper. When there's too much crap going on in your mind, you can't hear the whisper. That's why journaling, and I'm glad you brought it up, and just writing, it's like so important to give you that clarity, the mental clarity that you need.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, every day, if I don't journal, I feel really weird. Like I feel off,
Yeah.
Like this morning, I ran out of time. I didn't give myself enough time, but I only had enough time to like write like 3 things I was grateful for. But I'm like, once I start that's usually how I'll start my journaling, is like 3 things that I'm grateful for. But then I'm just flow into like multiple pages and everything. Like I'm sure a book is in my future too. I mean,
100% it is.
Definitely a writer.
100% it is.
Yeah. But yeah, I know Samantha keeps going, Kelly, are you ready? Like, I know it's not about being ready. It's about just doing it. So I do just need to do it, but it's, I feel like things just kind of sometimes have a timeline, and I feel like I'm trying to strategically prioritize certain things over others so that I can have space to do something like that.
And that's so important. I think I was listening to Tim Ferriss. There was a video he talked about, I think it was on Tom Billio. And he's like, you can do so many things in your life, but you can't do them all at the same time.
No.
And I was like, man, that's so true. It's like, we want to do all these things, but the worst thing you can do is try to do everything at once. Focus on one thing, get that done, and focus on the next thing. Now I've been guilty of this, because I'm like, oh, I got to do all this, and I'm comparing myself to this guy and that guy.
Hey.
It's like, do one thing for like, focus on that.
Yeah.
Focus on that for a while. Like for the book, especially, like the book, it's a commitment. It's a process.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. And, we were talking about 75 hard earlier. And it's just like, when you make those commitments to yourself, a book is one of them. It's just a non-negotiable. Right. It's like, this is what I got to do. I need to put my energy into this, and I'm going to get it done. But you can't do that if you have a bunch of other things that are taking up your mental space, because you need that space.
Yeah.
Right. So
absolutely.
The time will come when it's the perfect time. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So talk about 75 hard. Tell people what that is and why did you decide to do it?
Yeah. So 75 Hard is a mental toughness program. It's done by Andy Frisella. If you guys don't follow him, you should. He's one of the most motivating and inspirational dudes. Maybe you might not like some might not like his opinions. I love the guy. I think he's as real as you can get. He's got this, he doesn't like it when you call it a challenge, because it's not a challenge. It's a mental toughness program, because for 75 days, you have to commit to doing these things. And it's 2 45-minute workouts a day, reading 10 pages a day, drinking a gallon of water a day, no cheat meals, no drinking. And what was the other? I think that's probably it. Yeah. I have it like in my mind. So I'm just thinking about the checklist. Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's reading a gallon of water, 2 45-minute workouts, no cheat meals, and
the book.
And reading the 10 pages. So it's immediately people go, oh, well, it's not good to work out twice a day. And like immediately it's like, I can't do that. I can't. And it's like, yes, you can.
Right.
It's 75 days and you're a lot more resilient than you think. Is it great to work out for 75 days straight, twice a day or do that forever? Probably not. But then again, how do you know what you're capable of? This is the bullshit that we get told, that this isn't good or that isn't good. And we don't really know what's good for ourselves. The problem is we're living too much in what everybody else is saying and not listening to ourselves. So that was a big factor for me. Is that, what am I capable of? Okay, first of all, that's a big thing. Second was like, I'm lacking discipline in my life. I am negotiating with myself in so many different areas of my life right now that I'm tired of it. And I want to commit to this, because I'm hearing and I'm seeing people have these results, physically, the body shape I was in, I wasn't happy with it. And then I asked myself, well, why? Well, it's because you're not eating right. You're not working out enough and all the things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we just want to make excuses like, oh, I'm dealt these hands, blah, blah, blah. We have to, for me, I was like, I want to take complete ownership. I want to get in the best shape of my life. I want to see what this thing did, what this does. So I started to do it and a lot started to unfold for me. I started to see that when I commit to something 100% non-negotiable, every decision in my life that I make revolved around making sure I do this thing. And it's a liberating feeling when you commit to that extent. Absolutely. And when I started to do that, when I started to read every day, when I started to drink a lot of water, when I started to work out every day, one of the workouts has to be outside. That's another factor.
Yeah.
When I started to do this, I was like, man, I feel good. And, one of the biggest things is when you keep promises with yourself, this is a famous Tony Robbins saying, confidence comes from keeping the promises with yourself. Mm-hmm. And when you do these things for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you start to see like, wow, I mean business.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually doing the thing that I said I'm going to do. And then I'm like, I look back, I'm like, shit, I did this for 30 days. And, as we're airing this, I'm on like day 58 or 50, or no, like 59 or 60. And I'm like, it's crazy to look at, but that gives me confidence to know, like, I've overcome myself every day for 59 days. What else can I do? What other things am I capable of? Because before I didn't even think I could work out twice a day. Before I thought I couldn't drink a gallon of water. Before I thought I couldn't I couldn't read 10 pages, but I have. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people get so stuck in those little stories that they don't do things because of that. And then when you start to do that, you're like, man, I can really take on more stuff. I can do this. And you pay attention to your body. And I started to see like, wow, like I'm getting in shape. I'm feeling amazing. I'm boxing, I'm running. I'm like, wow. So what I've been told is that you can't do this stuff because it's not good for your body. I'm like, I don't know it. And I feel good.
Yeah.
And then that kind of stuff starts to build into other stuff. And my entire vibration, my frequency in general has really improved because I'm moving so much energy daily that I don't even get time to have that stuckness. And it's important to feel your feelings. And we all go through days, but the days where we're challenged. But a lot of times we have to look at our checklist of what do we do today? Did you eat healthy? Did you work out? Did you drink water? Did you read? Did you surround yourself? Did you go in nature? A lot of times if we feel off, it's because we didn't do some things. Right. So that's what this does, is you start to do this. And I was starting to feel like nothing is getting me down anymore. Like nothing is, even with like my business and everything was like, I had to like fire a bunch of people, let people go. I don't like to say fire. I had to like change a bunch of shit in my business because it wasn't working out. I felt like I was putting a square peg down a round hole.
Yeah.
But even now, because of that, it's like, it's allowed me to believe and pursue other things that have opened up. And now things are like snowballing. It's because my emotional state is at a level that is like conditioned now for like, when these things happen, it's no big deal. Like things that would have got me off a little bit before are like, it's no big deal. And if I am feeling off, I'll just go for a workout or I'll, meditate or whatever. And then I'm able to move through that. So I don't allow it to like these thoughts and these feelings, these low vibrations that come throughout our day. I don't allow it to like take over because I'm moving too much energy. So in that regard, I know I'm very passionate about this.
I love it.
It's been just such a wild ride. And it's just something that it's so much different than what I thought. And I get it now. I get it. People are like, it's changed my life. 75 hard changed my life. And it really does, because when you can commit to yourself like this, shit just changes. And I've realized that another big thing is choosing the challenging situation in your life creates more. I did a post about this. I was like, I've noticed that when I choose the challenging thing, the adversity in the moment, the thing that sucks, I'm actually allowing myself to get into more of a flow state later on. Yeah. I'm allowing myself to get into a high vibration because it's like I've chosen these things, I've moved my body, I've done the things, and then everything else kind of unfolds and like everything just feels easier. But when I don't do these things and I don't set myself up and I try to avoid doing the things and I don't, like I was doing for a long time, then I feel this like lack of focus later in my day. I feel like confused. I feel like lack of direction. And then I have to go back as to why is that? And it's always the days where I wanted to take the easy road and not commit to doing the thing that challenged me first. Like even if it's a cold plunge, a workout, whatever, a meditation can be challenging. Yeah. It's like choosing that in the moment is actually going to free your mind and your energy later so that you get into that like law of attraction state, which we want to be at to attract more things.
Yeah.
But when you avoid, when you're like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I just want to like be free and float around, you're actually not doing what you think.
Yeah.
You're not actually bringing yourself that state. You're sending out a confused message and you're actually going to feel more confused. And what comes from confusion? You start to doubt.
Yeah.
You start to maybe shame yourself for not feeling a certain way or whatever. And that usually comes from a lack of like doing the shit that we know we need to do.
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody. So 75 hard has been something for me where I've known I've needed to do it for a while. I know it's come to me in meditations. It's been like, you need to figure this shit out. You need to get back on track. And it's helped a lot. So hopefully that's useful for people. It's different for everybody. Everyone's got a different story of why they need to do things or not. But at the very least, I think at the minimum, it's like, ask yourself, how many times do you negotiate with yourself daily with things you need to do?
Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like a negotiation. And really, it's just overcoming yourself every day. If you can overcome yourself, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this too. The meditation, you sit there, you overcome yourself. That's all it is. You get up. That's the battle. It's not about anybody else. It's not about your uncle or your friend on social media or proving it. It's like, can I overcome myself today? Can I overcome the stories, the limitations that I tell myself? And what happens when you do that? You start to feel better. You're like, yes, I did it. Good job. Pat yourself on the back. You reward yourself, right? You celebrate it, because doing those things every day is what builds the brick by brick by brick by brick. Then eventually you have this like foundation.
Yeah.
And like, that's what it does. That's what makes confidence. People are like, how do you get confidence? How do you believe in yourself? It's doing that shit every single day.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no magic formula.
Right.
You know what works by now. Like, I'm sure. Like,
yeah.
If not, take an inventory, do a week's worth of assessment. What made me feel good today? Okay, so I did this. Cool. What made me feel off? Like, when did I fall off? Okay, here, boom, boom, boom. Take note of that, right? Just like if you're eating something, like, oh, that food didn't make me feel good. All right, so I know that doesn't make me feel good. Let's not have that.
Right.
And then you start to like construct this like formula for yourself. Nobody can tell you what that is. But what I'm playing games with yourself, if you're in the position that I was in, and just like be real honest, and just know that negotiating with yourself isn't going to help. Just do the thing. And when you do the thing, you're always happy about it. And, you know, that's kind of the lesson that I've learned.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, speaking of today, so I have been like, I mean, my typical form of exercise, and it has been my typical form of exercise for the last 3 years, has been walking. Like, I love going outside and going for walks. Love it. Whether it's 30 minutes or an hour and a half, love it. Well, also I'll do like a little bit of yoga stretches, like not like a full 30 minutes or hour or anything like that. Like, I'm talking like 10 minutes maybe, but just to like bend my body and twist it and get the energy moving through it. Right. And I never used to be a yogi, but now I am. And it's so good for you. But I recognize, like, February till May, I was working out a couple of times a week with a trainer, a friend of mine, here in Atlanta. And I loved it. I loved getting that strength back up and like lifting weights again. And I was like really into it. And then I was just like, I don't know, like my body just felt it needed something else. And I have just been craving like yoga. Been craving it. I wasn't like going to any classes or anything. Anyways, last night I was like, you know what? There's gotta be like a studio here in Atlanta. I just need to go. Like, let's see if there's like an intro offer or something like that. And I'm going to do it. So it was like $30 unlimited for like 30 days. Right. I'm only going to be here for 15 because I'm going to Colorado in a few weeks. So I was like, whatever, $30. If I go every single day, it's worth it. Whatever. Like, it doesn't even matter. It's worth one class. But I was like, okay, I'll either go to like the 6 a.m. or the 7 a.m. this morning. And I set my alarm for both to like get up at like 5 something to go to the 6, or 6 to go to the 7. I was in bed by like 9:30, 10. I didn't fall asleep till like 1:30, almost 2 o'clock this morning. I was like, damn it. Like, I'm probably not going to go. Like, I'm definitely not going to go to the 6 a.m. I'm pushing 4.5 hours sleep. So I was like, I'm very big on my sleep these days. Like, I really try to get as close to 8 hours as possible. However, I really do like waking up early because I like spending a lot of time with myself in the morning. I don't like the 5 minutes and then quick to like have to like rush to do anything. So anyways, long story short, the 5 a.m. alarm went off. I obviously slept through that one, but the next one, and I was like, just get up, Kelly, just get up, like, go. And it was so great. I mean, I got there, I did the like hour yoga flow, and it was hard as shit. It was very hard, but also like, because I've been doing a little bit of those yoga poses for the last few years, even just that little bit every day, 5 to 10 minute, 15-minute stretches here and there. Like, I was actually so much more flexible in the class than I had been years ago when I went to yoga. I'm like, just that little bit of consistency with stretching my body every day and just moving my body, whether it was just going for the walk. But tying that back into your 75 hard, I think when people think of like the exercise portion of that, they think, oh, I have to go like run sprints on a treadmill and I have to like go lift heavy shit. And I'm like, after I got done with that yoga class this morning, I went for a 45-minute walk outside. So it's like, there was my inside workout and there was my outside.
Exactly.
And I had 2 hours of mind body connection. Like it was beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
So good.
It's so good. Yoga is so important too.
Yeah. It's so
you know, like anything that is making yourself better. Walking is great. Yeah. Like you have to pay attention to your body. It's just like, you know, some days, but you want to, I think for me, it was like, where's the level of pushing myself or making excuses? I'm like, if I feel good, I got to push harder. If I'm feeling sore, then I'm like, hey, give myself a little bit. Then that's our own, the only person we're cheating is ourselves. Nobody's going to come down and be like, hey, you know, that's what I've realized. It's like, hey, you can walk today or you can run today. It's up to you. Absolutely. Right? It's like, how do you feel? And I think it's about being honest with ourselves. And I think it's also important in, you know, understanding that too. It's like, there's nothing wrong with a great walk. It's just as important and therapeutic. Absolutely. For your body. And same with yoga, man. Yoga is a humbling experience.
So humbling.
So challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. And because you can like one day you'll like, I want to say like nail a pose and the next day you'll totally like be off balance and off kilter. And it could be because of something going on internally in your head or what you ate the day before or what you ate hours before. Like it's just such a cool experience. And like I said, 5 years ago, I would not be saying that. But it's so cool.
There's another aspect to this that just came to me that I think is worth sharing is that, you know, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've spent a lot of time, you know, there's masculine and feminine energy, right?
Totally.
A lot of my life I spent in the masculine, you know, the doing or the, you know, the alpha athlete, all that. And then I spent a lot of time in the feminine, the being. So feminine's being, masculine's doing.
Right.
So, you know, I've been doing a lot of the meditation, a lot of the journaling, a lot of all of that stuff. But what I found was like, okay, I'm almost too much in that now. So for me, the 75 hard was like an opportunity to like get back into like my alpha and balance that out. Cause I still do my meditations, but I felt, and you, and any of your listeners out here, like we all have masculine and feminine. We all know when maybe we're doing too much or we're, you know, you're not doing enough. And we all know we have to figure that out. So for me, it was like, I want to get back into that, like the doing stuff because I felt I was lacking that. And it was showing up in my business and my life. So something to note as well, right? As we go through these healing journeys, sometimes we're, you know, we want to do more of the being, the feminine, the diving into that. Sometimes we want to go into the masculine, the doing. And then eventually you craft this like nice balance where you can do both because it's really, I think that's the problem with our world right now is everybody's out of balance.
Oh, totally.
Some people think it's like, go hustle till you drop and die. And some people think, just let it all happen. Don't do any work. It'll all just fall out of the sky. Like,
you gotta do both.
Like there's a balance there. Yeah. There's a balance that we have to find as individuals. Enough to challenge ourselves, but then at the same time, slowing down enough to listen to what we need to hear and to feel into, because feeling into things is just as important as like hustle, right? So that's something that I've really realized. And I think a lot of people, if you reflect on your own life, you can probably see yourself as well, where you're showing up in those areas.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Yeah. It's interesting because like just talking about the doing, I was very much in my masculine energy. Obviously I didn't know what that feminine energy, masculine, I didn't even know what that stuff meant 6 years ago, but, you know, I was like so caught up in this doing energy, working corporate, coaching, bartending, training, like I was doing multiple jobs. And it's funny because I'm like, you know, I was so like unfulfilled and burnt out with some of those jobs. And now it's like, I'm still wearing many hats, but I like love what I do, you know? And so it's just like there's a different hustle going on. While, you know, that is why I try and like pour into myself first thing in the morning. Cause that's my like, just getting into that receiving mode and that feminine balance because I'm going to be doing for the next handful of hours, you know? And then at evening, I do like to check out. Like, I mean, I use TV most of the time as like a form of self-care you know, for me, but otherwise, you know, just making a nice dinner, whatever. And it's good, or going to dinner with someone, you know, it's like nice to do those things too. And just like check out a little bit.
You want a nice little hot date? How's the dating?
Yeah, hot date. Well, that was the conversation we were going to next. So nice segue. Yeah, I know. It's so funny because like dating is such like I'm such like a ebb and flow with the dating world. Like, especially, I mean, I like being out. I like being social. That is another intention of mine, is to be going and being in different places more, whether that's traveling or just like in my local city, but not to meet someone, but you never know who you're going to meet, the opportunities that are out there for a career or whatever, you know, just social networking. But with that said, it's just interesting. Like, I haven't gone on a date since February. 2 months since I've gone on a date, but also like, you know, what I was talking about earlier, it's like my mind was like in such chaos that, you know, when our mind is in chaos, there's a lot of other areas of your life that are probably in chaos too. So it's like my career, my businesses weren't where I really wanted them to be. So it's like been a lot of focus on getting that stuff where I want it to be. So I wasn't prioritizing dating and like relationships stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so, but now it's like, okay, if I can, like I said, I'm strategically trying to get all of my components of career and business where I want them, so that it opens up and creates space for dating and having a relationship, you know? So What about you? How's it for you?
Yeah, I've really been focused on my own stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and my last relationship was June. It ended June 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's been stuff happen.
Same for me. That's weird.
There's been some stuff go on and different people, and it's all great.
Yeah.
I just had the capacity to want to fully jump in with somebody, or to even really care enough to want to do that. You know, I've dated, I've met people, but I'm just like, you know what? I don't know if I'm ready for this. And because I've been doing my own work on myself to get to the place where like I don't know. For the longest time, I've just been selfish, focusing on myself, because for the longest time I would just go after women because that's how I got validation.
Right.
And I've talked about this before. It was like, that was how I got validation for myself, was like, oh, you approve of me? Amazing. Because I was the hockey player, I was the bartender, and it was like, oh, awesome. That's my value. So for me, it's been like trying to create the value within myself without that. Of course, I'm a guy. I love, you know, I like meeting women. I like beautiful women. Like I'm still the same, but now I don't want to just pursue somebody or jump in just to like do it. And I don't want to lead people on. I don't like to just, unless I can see myself wanting to be with them forever or married or whatever, I haven't felt interested to like jump into a relationship.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of factors.
Yeah, I agree.
There's also children involved in, like, we're at the age now where people have kids, some don't. And I just feel a responsibility, like, unless I'm really ready, I don't want to like be that person that comes in and out of somebody's life. I had a lot of step family, a lot of crazy divorces and stuff in my life. And maybe I'm still working through that. Maybe my dad had such a bad second marriage that she fucked our family up for so many years. That I'm kind of scared in a way too. I'm like, I'm good alone. Like, I don't know. So it's been a process. I've met a lot of amazing people. and to be honest, when you're not drinking, going out to these, you go on the dating app, everybody wants to go out and drink and stuff. And when I'm doing my commitments to myself, it's like, it's less like, I don't really want to go out and eat shitty food because I can't either. I can't drink. I'm almost 6 months sober now. When this comes out, I'll be 6 months sober, 7 months sober. And I guess it's the priorities for myself of like getting myself to the place where like I feel that I'm ready and it's for the right reasons. It's not just like I need somebody.
Right. Totally.
I need somebody to like take care of me. And that's how I used to be because I worked it out. I had like mother wounds of missing my mom and I just want to like have a mom figure in my life to take care of me. That's what I realized working through my book too. It's like, because I didn't have that as growing up because I moved away from my mom as a young kid. So I saw that in people that I was attracted to. I was like, oh, are they going to like take care of me? And I didn't understand that's what was going on.
Right. Of course.
So there's just been a lot of shit that I've had to figure out for myself. And I've enjoyed, casual dating here and there, but there's been nothing where I've been really fully ready to like jump in and say like, here we go. And I don't know, I'll ask you this, like, are we ever ready?
Right.
Like, are we ever, or do we have to take a chance and just say, fuck it and go for it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've done it before. It's bit me in the ass a couple times for jumping in when I shouldn't have. But then it's like, is it fear taking over or is it like where, and then listening to your heart, like, is this the right thing to do or should I wait? It's not an easy thing.
Hey, gorgeous. Would you love to work with me on a more one-to-one basis, taking yourself, your relationships, business, and bank account to the next level? I want to invite you to book a one-to-one Breakthrough Plus strategy session with me. Apply for 6-month private one-to-one coaching or my Goddess Magic Mastermind, or simply dive into the Goddess Magic digital course bundle. Go to the link in the show notes if you'd like to work more intimately with me. I look forward to working with you. Right. Yeah, I feel that. I had a healing session about a month ago with a woman, and I was telling her that, because we did start to talk about like dating and whatnot. And I was like, I feel like there's a part of me that there's like this intuition and it's, is my head and my heart connecting? And am I really like aligned with with these people, right? Like, can I be aligned with them? And cause I had like a few scenarios, I guess, where I'm like, okay, well, like this person treats me really well. This person makes me feel really good. Like, while also it was followed with a handful of buts. And, when I was explaining that to her, she gave me these 3 words, and now I just continue them as my mantra every day, but it's like allow, trust, and explore, or allow, explore, and trust. And because she was like, the way that you're sharing this with me, she's like, oh yeah, you're telling me the truth and like what you're thinking. She said, but you're kind of like figuring it out before you even give it the opportunity. Like, meaning, so that's the fear, or it's like a what ifing everything. Well, okay, well, I know that he's very much set in his ways about this, so I know it'll never work. I know that he does this, or I know because of this, our lifestyles are way too different. Like, it'll never work. So I was doing that, and she's like, but why not just allow yourself to explore it and just trust that what is meant for you is going to come. So if you do decide to explore that relationship, or both, or whatever, then trust that it's going to work out no matter what, So it's like, just take that leap, take that chance in a sense. Like, if that person makes you feel good, because relationships are more about how that person makes you feel, versus these like conditional little things. But granted, it was funny because I had an opportunity with one of these people recently, meaning like we went on a trip together, but not like romantically. But I was like, okay, like this will give me a really good time. Like, he's just a friend of mine, but I'm like, this will give me like really good clarity on if maybe I do feel something different. Cause now I have like, I'm spending like a few days with him, like I'm gonna be around him a lot, all this stuff. And I was just like, no, I just don't feel anything really more than a friend. Have I felt more? Have I been flirtatious? Have I felt somewhat romantic feelings? Yes. But like altogether, I was just like, no, I just like don't feel it. Like something's not there. So, it's like that was my little opportunity there. I mean, maybe it's just not the right timing. Who knows? I don't know. But I also just think that there are more. I have received evidence of more aligned people in my life that are doing maybe more of what I like doing or how I think. So that are just like more, and not to say like, I mean, I know the whole thing opposites attract, like, but I feel like if someone makes you feel really good, they're very much in alignment, like with their own growth, but also like relationship growth, like everything, like that's more of what I'm looking for. And I just don't, like, I do some weird shit. I need a man who does weird shit with me or is open to,
Yeah. Open to the mutual weirdness is very, like you got to be completely yourself.
Right.
It's so interesting because the chemistry is so important. And sometimes the people you think that you'd be attracted to, the chemistry is not there. And then sometimes it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Especially like, I think like the kiss is a big one too. It's like, whoa, that was not what I expected, or whoa, that was wild. It's
right.
it's really, there's like certain things I feel like we all have like certain like a checklist in our mind. I'm curious for you, like what is really important in the beginning as like stuff that I'm not going to say that you like say have to be perfect or whatever, but like what are things that are kind of like sort of like a non-negotiable, or like what are the things you notice first that like make you be like, oh, I like this person? Like what makes you like somebody?
Yeah.
Like what makes you go from like, oh, they're just, like you said, that guy, you're like, what makes you want to like more attracted, or like what is that thing that attracts you to that person more?
Right. I mean, for that person in particular, but any
in general, like what is it
generally
is it different each time, or is it like usually kind of the same sort of thing, or is it humor? Is it,
I mean, I would say, the way that they make me feel, meaning there were so many times in my life that I was not treated necessarily like a little queen princess, right? So now it's like, I feel like the caliber of guys that I am attracting are treating me that way. And I just like, they do things before I would ask them. They do things because they know I like it. They like, I went on a date with someone in like 2019, I think. And it was just like interesting timing too, because like I had done like some like energy healing work, like around love and relationships. And then this guy like popped into my life like a week later, and it was so crazy. But we went on 2 dates, and he shows up at my place for the second date, and with like a bouquet of white roses, which are like one of my favorites. And I love orange and white, and 2 bottles of wine. And I was like, oh, are we getting crazy tonight? And he was like, no, he goes, this one's for you. Like, this one's for us for tonight. Have a couple glasses. He's like, this one's for you to just like enjoy. I'm like, what man? Who does that? I was like, that was secretly, good. Bro. That was good.
Secretly, he's like, we're drinking both tonight.
No, because I knew he wasn't like a big drinker. So like, I actually had more of the first bottle than he did. Like he only had like a glass and a half. So I knew that though, but I don't know, but just mannerisms, their actions, like that kind of thing. But I mean, like I met someone, I don't know, like a month and a half ago too at some convention. And I'm like, okay, first of all, at a convention that I was speaking at. So of course he's like-minded, right? While also, so we're just like sitting at the bar and talking, and he's just telling me all these things about like, and he was younger, like I think just had turned 30 or something, but he was like, yeah, I, basically like a college dropout. I started like tuning into like Tony Robbins and everything like back in college. My brother introduced me, and I just was like, what am I doing here? Like, I have a lot of experience and expertise on certain things. I know I can like grow, like build a business with this. So he became like an entrepreneur at the age of like 20. And he was just like, I've had health coaches and business coaches, and I've been on a sex retreat, and I know like actually like how to please women and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, prove it. No, I'm just kidding. No. But I was like, okay. But I knew he wasn't bullshitting me because he was like, hey, and he like pulls up the guy's Instagram account whose like retreat he went on. And like, so I started like diving into this guy's stuff, and I was like, okay, like, I just was like, that's so cool. Like, one, you've done something that I haven't ever done before, but two, that you're so into self-development and self-growth, and like how just like open-minded he was to a lot of different things, and just holding space for other people's perspectives and whatnot. It was just like really cool. But you know, so things like that like jazz me up. Like I love, and I think that's, you know, I mean, I love talking about self-care and personal development, and just like I said, like the weird stuff like that maybe 5 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago, it was like, that was not even in my realm of consciousness. I mean, plant medicine, I've never done it, but like I'm open to it, you know. And like there's some people that are like, what? No, I would never do that, or you're fucking weird. I don't know. But I like people who are just very open and can hold space for you and just like make you feel safe. Like I want someone that's going to make me feel safe. And so like, you know how transparent and like vulnerable I am. I mean, I'm probably oversharing half the time on social media to people that don't even like know me, you know.
People need that. They do.
It's
medicine for people. Trust me, because all you're doing, well, not all you're doing, but what you're doing is giving people permission to be themselves.
Right.
That's essentially what we're doing, is just giving people permission.
Yes, 100%.
Right. So it's the more you share, it's really important. Yeah. And the way you do it isn't like coming from like a victim point of view. It's like you're sharing from a place of love, and that's different.
Yeah.
Like, look at me, I'm sharing, please. Like, I need your feedback. It's not like
absolutely. Yeah. But I want, you know, I look for a man who is also can be vulnerable back, because I have had the one-sided relationships, and I created it's interesting how we do this. Maybe only women do this. I don't know if men do, but how we can create stories. Like, okay, let's say we're on a date and I'm just talking about so many things that I'm like super passionate about, right? Well, also like having dialogue with the person, but at the end of the date, I'm like, wow, that was so good. And you could be like, she really only talked about herself, but like, although she had so much enthusiasm and she was so like vibrant about everything, you could have had a completely different perspective on that date but I was like so in it. I've had relationships where I'm just very vulnerable, and then they're active listeners. They are such good listeners, like, and will give, you know, the whole space, will make me feel very safe and everything. But then on the flip side, when I'm like, you know, why don't you share something with me? They don't go as deep. And I'm like, do I not make them feel safe? Or is that, you know, I don't try and like take it as like a personal criticism, but I'm like, okay, where are they not feeling safe with me in a sense, you know? So that's been kind of a interesting thing. Yeah. So I want them to feel equally as safe with me, to be open to sharing. And, you know, I don't have these fears. I mean, I probably used to have the fears of like, oh, like I'm going to be so vulnerable and then someone's going to leave me, you know? I mean, that was probably the biggest pain coming out of Love is Blind. Like I had shared my life with this man, and then like in a matter of a moment, we were not seeing each other. We weren't talking to each other anymore. And so it was like, shit. So it was pretty painful to go through, but you know, I don't have those. I've worked through a lot of that, and I don't have like any, I don't know, I'm still going to be vulnerable. I'm still going to be me, and I'm still going to be completely transparent with people. And I don't put my, I guess, I don't even know how to say it. Like, I don't think like, oh, if I say this, I'm not going to feel safe. Like I'm safe within me. I've got to I'm safe for myself, but I would like the other person to reciprocate.
Yeah. I completely resonate with what you're saying. I think when you're a deep person and you're doing the depths of the work, you can't expect anything less in somebody else, because nothing for me is worse than if I meet somebody and we just have surface level conversations. They're not willing to go deep. I'm not talking about, you know, going deep on the first conversation, but you can tell if a person is willing to go deep. I have to go deep. Even with all the people I have to have conversations that matter.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it's important to me. It's like, you know, and in a
Yeah.
relationship, man, I need to be able to talk about the craziest, wildest shit, all the weird stuff, all my opinions.
Yeah. Same.
And I just need that. And in my last relationship, it felt like I was talking to, like when I would share stuff, it was like I was talking to a wall.
Right.
Like
yeah.
she was a great, you know, great person and all that. And I don't want to like that relationship was valuable for me because she helped me through a lot of shit in some dark times. And I think that's what it was for.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
I was having my podcast and I was doing all this like deep work. And I was like, when I would share, she would look at me and she wouldn't understand. And it's not her fault. She was like 9 years younger than me. And I was like, this doesn't feel good. But when you can talk to somebody and that person like receives it and they like, yeah. And they're like, you have that like connection and then you listen to them and you go deep. There's nothing better than that.
Right.
There's nothing better than that. And I feel like when you've developed that within yourself and you're willing to grow and you're willing to do the work and you're willing to share, why would you expect anything less from somebody else?
Right.
How the fuck can you stay with somebody for the rest of your life if they're not willing to go deep with you? It's like, It's pointless. It seems like torture. Imagine somebody that doesn't want to grow. They don't need to be doing the exact same thing as you, but they need to be on a trajectory of growth.
Yes.
If you're on growth.
Yeah.
You know, they like, if they're not willing to grow and they're like, that personal development stuff is bullshit or this is bullshit.
Oh yeah, no.
Great. Like, no, like if you can't share your truth with me, then like, this isn't going to work.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like it's like either you do the work and you show that you're doing the work. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't date somebody now or be serious with somebody that isn't at least working on shit.
Right. Same. I mean,
it's like,
yeah.
Right. Like it's like, it doesn't make any sense because we're all human. We all have trauma. We all have shit we're working through. And if you aren't at least working on things, or everybody's different. I don't want to say like, I don't want to generalize, but I feel like we all have our things that nobody's perfect. We all have our things. As long as we're aware and we're like actively learning and working towards that humbly, humble students of life. You know, I talk about just wanting to learn and share. And I just think it's so important. And in dating, like, that's why I find so hard because even on like apps, go on there and I'm like, oh God. Yeah. This is so fucking surface. Like, I don't want to talk. And then you start to talk and it's like, you start to, it's like, I'm like, boring. Sorry, boring. Like, I don't want to talk. I'm like, I've lost interest. It's like, I don't know. It's nobody's fault. It's just like, you can't deal with this shit if you're, and like, especially also with the world and the way the world's transformed, it's like certain people's values and beliefs really make a difference. What about you? Like, I know this has changed the last 2.5 years, like how people look at life. Like, it's really highlighted values. I'm like, holy shit. Still you think that? Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Like, it's like,
no, well, that's why I was saying, like, I need someone that I am looking for someone who is just super open-minded about things, you know? Like, I even had a conversation the other day with a guy friend of mine, and I was sharing a story about another friend of mine with him. And just hearing his feedback, his perspective more so, I was like, wow, like I didn't even think about that. But I like loved it, you know, like I loved what he said, but it, you know, I feel like, I guess the conversation was basically like, oh, like my friend's dealing with someone who is not very open-minded. And so my friend was painting the picture back to me to be like, well, obviously we all have our own perspective, and what we believe is what we think to be the best thing for us. Right. Yeah. And so, although, yes, she's open-minded, and yes, should more of us think like that? Yes. However, the other person on the other end of that conversation doesn't. They have more of a closed mind, but what they think is what they think is best for what's going on. And I was like, you're right. He said, so like, although she may be mad, this guy's just as, ticked off just because they just literally have a difference of opinion on something. Like, that's it, And I was like, you're right. Like, so it's like, you're not right or, no one is wrong. Like, we're never wrong. It's just a perspective. And that's, again, like, I'm looking for someone that can hold space for my perspective while me being able to do the same for theirs. And I think that's the beauty of like really communicating and being able to have, an emotionally intelligent relationship.
Well, and I think that's really important to be able to see other people's views and to be able to have that compassion, because they believe what they believe because of the life that they've lived.
Yes, correct.
The lens that they look at is it's made up of stories of the past that's constructed who they are today. So they're just doing the best with what they know.
Correct.
And what I've learned is like being able to listen and accept people for what they have and not discrediting that is so important. Doesn't mean, but there's certain things that for me, that view just won't, I just can't like it. Right. There's things like romantically, cause like there's certain things that are like, I don't know, like, I think it's important to understand that everybody has different ways, and the accepting of it, not canceling them because we think we're right.
Correct.
But also knowing what we need and respecting our boundaries and knowing like what's non-negotiables for us is really important too. So it's like, but I think there's too much of this, like, we may have even talked about this last year. It's like, there's too much of this. I'm right. You're wrong. Fuck off. You're wrong. And it's like, well,
no,
that's not a good way to be.
No.
Just like, accept, like, that's the problem. It's like, there's not enough debates. There's not enough healthy debates.
Right.
Okay, great. You speak, then I speak, and then we talk about it. And then we just, whatever. But now it's like, no, you're this, and let's just cancel it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Absolutely.
How do we learn? How do I learn from you with your opposite view, your opposing view? How can I learn if I just shut you down?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm guilty of it sometimes. I'm like, fuck you with your stupid views. And I'm like, hold on. All right, let's listen. Because obviously they have some points that are probably true.
Right.
And I'm kind of like in my echo chamber of like, it's easy on social media to just close people off, but it's like, that is not helping any of us. I think when it comes to life and relationships, it's like really being able to listen more and less about like spitting our views into somebody's face without like actively listening to what they are saying.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Like it's
absolutely. And yeah, when you have just different views, and again, it's honoring the boundaries and knowing like what's more in alignment for you. Like always, it's like, okay, like I can respect someone where they're at on their journey. Like, yeah, maybe I've dated guys in the past who, man, I wish that it could have worked out, but it's like, okay, but they're not really in alignment with like what I'm wanting. And like, and so I respect where they're at in their journey and keep attracting the type of person I do want,
What's
what's
a red flag? Like what's a non-negotiable? Like, whoa, I'm out of here. Like, what is the thing that's like, I'm out, I'm done. Like, what is that? Is there anything that you're like, or is it different each time? Or is it something like this needs to be this way? Or is there anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, granted, yeah, I'm sure that there's some, like if someone's just rude, like, I don't want anybody that's like really rude and impatient.
Do you find it hard with like the political divide and values with with the sides? Like, do you find that tough dating these days? Like, because you're in Georgia, right?
Yeah, I'm in Georgia.
And if you like, it's really become this weird polarizing divide.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm just like not a big fan of politics in general.
Yeah, I hate politics.
One, not to say I'm a fan, I'm not like intelligent about politics. So that is a conversation I would never choose to have. Like I would never even bring it up.
Yeah.
While if someone did, it would be more of me just listening and just holding space for them and being like,
Yeah.
oh, there was one date I went on a date last year, and I think I did start to give maybe more a little bit of spiritual views, and they were a little bit more on the religious side of things. So that was the reason. That was the reason we had no third date.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it was interesting because I was like, I'm very open. Like,
yeah,
I may have said what I said, but I'm very open to all. I don't know. Like, it would be cool if I took a course on all different types of religions and like see like where my views stand, But anyways, it was interesting because he was just like, what you said, I just don't like, we're not aligned spiritually or whatever. And I was like, well, I don't even know necessarily what your views are. Like, I would be open to having a third date and talking about that. And he was just like, yeah, I just like don't think. And I was like, in my head, like for a split second, I was like, that kind of sucks. But then the majority of me was like, okay, well, I don't want someone like that anyway. So like someone who's not even going to be like open, they just like hear one thing and they're just like, shut it down. Like he could have been like, I don't agree with that. Or like even on the date, like he just listened, and I think maybe he just took time to process it maybe. And over a few days, he was just like, yeah, no.
Interesting.
But it was interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, it was pretty deep what I said, and I probably shouldn't share that much with anybody, but whatever.
No, but you're just being in truth. But what's really interesting is like, it all depends on where you are in the world too.
Yeah.
It's like, so I've never been to Atlanta, right? But I'm guessing it's very like, it's a red state, and it's very like people are more conservative Republican, right?
Right. Well, we're one of the states that flips during
okay. Yes. See, I don't know shit about it, but just from my own ignorance, I feel like it's interesting because when you're in, like, there's less openness within that. Like, it's interesting that you're saying that because they're like very religious, and there's less talk about spirituality and like open-mindedness.
Yes.
But it's like, if you go to like a place like Seattle, it's like completely left, and it's like completely one way, but I don't necessarily like the shit that they value. I don't value, but it's like a different conversation. The dating world changes in the city we're in is what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like people's values on religion and values on spirituality or like, vaccines or whatever. It's like, it's fascinating to me how they change within like the state you're in and how that it affects the dating world. It's interesting, right? Like,
yeah.
Because people that are very religious to consider any of the spirituality, like what it could be,
right?
Fair enough. And then, the other side is like people are like pushing religion away.
Right.
And it's like, I just noticed that it really depends on where you're at, and it can really affect the dating world on the perspective. I've never dated in like a state like Atlanta. I'd just be curious as to see like what people's values are on the average versus like, I'm in Miami where it's different. And then, different cities, it's like you're exposed to different opinions. Yeah. It's really interesting.
That is interesting. Right? Yeah. And maybe that's your next program that you need to, or quote unquote challenge. You just need to like go live in a different state like every other week and just go on a handful of dates and talk about things.
That's the thing is like, I don't like anything to do with the political system.
No, I know.
But I just think it's easy how people identify a lot of what they do through and like the stuff that we do on a daily basis based on what the side is.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird.
It is.
How it's gone to this point. But it's like you can tell when you see somebody sometimes like, what, I bet you they're this, I bet you they're
Yeah.
It's like I never noticed anything like this before until the last couple of years where I'm like, whoa, this is like things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's just opened my eyes, and I just find it interesting with the dating world because so many people have different values about different things, and each place you go is completely a whole different experience.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. Now I'm going to be like hyper aware.
Like if you go to LA, I bet you if you went to Los Angeles, your
Yeah.
dating and the men you're going to meet are going to be a lot different.
Yeah.
If you
Oh,
go,
for sure.
right?
I'm sure.
Right? If you go to, let's say, Dallas, Texas,
Right.
you're going to, right? Like it's going to be a lot different.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
majority of the, like, maybe people will disagree with me. I don't know, but that's what I, each city is going to have. Well, even you even see it on the dating apps, see like people put in there like what they want. Like it's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I know.
But that's like the virtue signaling now.
Yeah.
It's like the I've done this, so I'm this.
Right.
Or like it's like it's just I just feel like it's unnecessary.
Right.
I feel like let's get to know people. I don't want to know anything. I just want to get to know you from my conversation. Why do I have to have these like weird things that I already can know what you believe in? Like even from somebody asks me on my first conversation on a dating app, I can tell sometimes by the questions they ask and where they're from. Right. That's crazy to me.
It is crazy. Yeah. Like I did, it was interesting because I did connect with someone just recently, but you know, I've listed some things on my dating profile that because I want people to know like more of who I am on a more soul level, right? And like what I'm into and everything. And so this like one guy read it and asked me a question about one of the things. And I was like, for me, at first I thought he like, you know, was familiar with that program or whatever that I had gone through that I had listed, but he didn't. He was just like, I'm just like really fascinated. Like, what does that mean? You know, like, what can you tell me more about that and stuff? And I'm like, yes, I can. Yeah. I'm like, yes. Thank you for asking. But it is just like so fascinating, like how we make our decisions based on people's answers or what they just listed. I mean, my experience from being on Love is Blind, plus all the self-love work, it has definitely opened me up a lot more. Like I used to probably just be like, oh, is he cute or not? You know, but now I really do read the prompts and, you know, their responses and whatnot and see what they're doing and that kind of thing. And I try to at least give that a chance, whether if I have to be somewhat attracted, of course.
Of course.
Some level of attraction there, but
where you were on Love is Blind, was there like a bit of a fear, like, what if this guy's ugly and I like him? Like, was there like, is there part of you that holds back? Like, I don't know if I want to like fully, cause I don't know if they're good looking. Like, is that real?
Yeah.
That's gotta
be. Yeah. No, it was, I mean, it not necessarily like when we were like getting engaged, because like that was still like in the pause, but when we were doing our reveal and the like doors were like opening, I was shaking like from head to toe. My knees were like, you could probably see, it would be like, is she having a seizure? Like I was convulsively shaking. So I was like, yeah, what if I'm not attracted to this guy? And like, you'll probably be able to see it on my face. Granted, I do wear a smile half the time. So like, but you'd probably be able to tell if I like didn't like him or whatever. So I don't know. And I mean, it wasn't like a holy shit factor when the doors open for me. Like he was an attractive man. He is an attractive man. I just wasn't like, woo. But then he kissed me, going back to the kiss, and he kissed me, and I was like, oh, I see.
That would give me anxiety, that feeling of like, they're going to capture this moment of me seeing this person. They're going to be able to tell if I'm like, you're like, oh, wow. Or, oh, hi. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, when you get a Christmas gift, gift, and you're like, oh, socks. Thank you.
Like I said, just smile. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. But then somebody gets you something good. You're like, oh my God, you know, that there's a difference.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference.
And it's like, that's why even watching that show, that being able to see that, because what an awkward feeling the first time seeing a person.
You know.
That's crazy. What pressure.
What pressure, I know. Crazy. It was nuts. Oh my God. Yeah. Do you have a particular like non-negotiable, like a red flag, I guess too? Not non-negotiable, a red flag.
It's a good question. Things have changed over the years for me. I would say like I'm a pretty easygoing person. I just like somebody that's open to possibilities, not limitations. All right. I feel like curious about life. Likes to have fun, like they have a relaxed demeanor. They like can like have fun, because I've been a very high strung person and I've relaxed a lot, but that balance of like somebody that's just like a calm demeanor, I like almost need that. I don't want to say need it, but it's nice to like, because I can be very like go, 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 go. And it's nice to have that calm energy, vice versa. So that, and I have to be attracted to the person. I'm not going to pretend like I have to be like, I need to like feel like I'm like, I can't hold back. Like I need to like, I want that because I know that's going to go away down the road. I know that'll eventually go away, but there's not, I realize that physical attraction is not everything, but it is something.
Yes.
It's important to be physically attracted. I also, this is a pet peeve of mine, and maybe people will get upset with me, but I'm going to be honest. I find it really annoying as you get into a relationship where we stop caring about what we look like to each other.
Right.
Like where you dress, like you just turn into the world's biggest bum. You wear like the worst clothes. You don't want to get dolled up. Oh, you're just my partner. That's just the way it is. It's like, yes, but like, don't you want to like, at least want to look good or feel good for them? Like, I know that I don't want to turn into a fat mess because I'm with somebody. I want them to be attracted to me. I want them to still be like, oh yeah, you like, I don't want to be that old guy that's like, oh, you're fat and old now. It's like, no, I want to consistently do my best to like look good for you. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not meaning like get dolled up and wear makeup, but I'm like, why do people think it's okay to go get dolled up for strangers? Like, I'm going to meet this stranger, get good. But then for you, I'm just going to take everything off. I'm going to put the worst everything because you accept me for me. I get it. I get that.
But I understand.
You know what I mean? It's like, why don't we want, as we're in love with somebody, why don't we want to be like, I want to I don't know, like each day, like get them excited to be, I want to look good. That's what I think. And I'm not meaning like in a superficial way. Like, I don't even care about makeup. I think I actually prefer a lot of like without much makeup. Like, I like natural. I just mean that feeling of like, it's just you. What do I care?
Right.
I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
I had that. I've had that in the past. And it's like, what do you mean? Like,
I agree with you.
I don't want to like that doesn't feel good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why aren't you trying to at least make, because I want to do that for you. I want us to try and always do that, because I feel like that effort is what's going to go a long way, because that's your person.
Yeah.
That's your person. Like, why would you?
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
That shit drives me crazy.
Yeah. I would say, for me, it's interesting how I have viewed myself. Like, I mean, years ago, I probably was more or less that person. But I was like that person just to anybody. It wasn't like I just wasn't dressing up even for I don't know. I was definitely dressing up for other people, like going to the bar. So I look sexy and slutty probably. So, a guy, I would attract a guy, who knows? But I was never doing it for me, essentially. It was always necessarily like, not to say that it was like a conscious thought, like, oh, I'm dressing up for a guy. It was like, yeah, I want to look good. But like now, like even a few years ago, like, I work from my house, like I don't have to put makeup on. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to dress up, like, but there are a handful of days that I do because it makes me feel prettier. It makes me feel more confident. And like, when I feel more confident, obviously I show up with a different energy when I'm doing things in my business, even if I'm just writing an email, so it's like, not even like presenting myself, but that's something though too, like in the dating space, like I have a lot of fucking clothes like that are nice. I'm not going on dates ever. I'm not like, so I have to wear them doing a podcast, working from my house. Like, I'm not like going out as much anymore either. So it's like, but I do have a lot of clothes that I would love to, but when I'm dating someone or just like going out I want to have a reason to get dressed up. And I don't necessarily need to have a reason to get dressed up is what I mean. Like, I want to like, just the way that I dress is different than it was years ago. Like I didn't care. Like even if I'm going to like the grocery store or something, I feel like I put myself together a little bit. I may not put makeup on, but like maybe things match, or I just look a little bit more presentable versus in the past, I didn't. I would just throw shit on and I look like a homeless person. Like, I like getting dressed up for my people though. Like, and I love it when a guy dresses up for me. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. And I say this because this is what I fell into in my last relationship. And I think we both did. And I think that's what it's like, well, I have them now. They're never going to, who cares? It's the things like, brushing your teeth and like having a shower you're just, who cares? Like that mentality of like, I'm so comfortable with you. Who cares? I get it. We all want to be comfortable with them. But at the same time, it's like, I would do it differently this time. I would, if I get into a serious, I want to put that effort in to like be my best for myself every day. And then, get my partner excited. Not like, oh, the guy doesn't give a shit.
This guy again?
I don't, And it's like, even if it's just the attitude of like, oh, well, I don't care. I can do whatever with you. It doesn't matter. Like just that attitude is like, it drives me crazy. It's like, what message are you sending? Yeah. What priorities that should be the one person. And I'm like, whatever that is, it's just like, essentially you're right. It's making the effort for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's like, how would you go about that when you first met them and you want to like them to be like impressed? Mm-hmm. If you can keep that feeling within, like it's a fun feeling. And like, you don't always need to do that. And of course we all like to be comfortable in our PJs together, but I just think we have to remember that getting too comfortable and taking a relationship for granted. Yeah. And what comes from that is like caring less about yourself because that you feel like you have them no matter what is a bad idea. Yeah, it's like each day is its own fresh start. How am I going to be the better person for myself so that my partner will be
exactly
right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is something that it's one of those things that I personally value now as like, and I won't say like, like as far as like red flags go, I think for me, it's like, if you're not willing to grow or at least be open, like we talked about earlier, then it's just not going to work.
Correct. Yeah.
Like if you're not willing to look at yourself and realize that we're all a work in progress. If you have it all figured out and you have this like super big ego, it's not going to work.
No, absolutely.
I
totally agree. And I think, also like just back to like dressing up for each other, we do have that belief, I guess, or that story in our head, like, oh, like, the physical attraction can fade after a while. So that's why it's so important to have, such an emotional connection and dynamic. But I don't know. I have hope that story and that narrative can change. So, and maybe that is why I'm like, okay, well, if I'm dressing up for my person and I'm working on myself and I'm just emitting this like vibrant energy as often as possible, like whether I'm in sweats or dressed to the nines, like it is about that energy and it is about working on yourself. And I don't think that physical attraction will fade as quickly, or if at all, if you are constantly working on yourself and just bettering the person you are. And granted, it has to, both partners have to be doing that, obviously. But I just,
Totally. Yeah, it's important. It's important. But I think a lot of people there's a misconception there where I'm comfortable, let's just let it all go.
Right.
Like you're still the same person you were when you met. Why does it change? You love them, but why wouldn't you want to have that feeling, that spark? That's why people end up getting divorced and giving a shit.
Yeah.
Like, how do you keep that spark? How do you keep that excitement of the first week when you can't stop thinking about them? Like, man, imagine being able to keep that all the time. That feeling of like, you can't stop thinking about them. Like I've never had that. And I think it's partly to do with my own losing, like just not giving a shit, being like, well, I got them now. Who cares?
Right.
And then you end up being roommates. You you end up not sleeping together, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're not making an effort. And I think that happens to a lot of people. So
No,
something
totally.
to be aware of.
It is. Listeners. Everybody out there. Yes, absolutely. Oh my God, I feel like I could talk to you about so many different things. But I have to wrap up. We'll take our conversation offline. Okay. So any last words that you would like to share with the audience about anything?
Yeah, there was a lot there.
I know. I'm like, I could talk to you about like so many different things.
Yeah. Well, I'd love for people to check out my book. I think it could help a lot of people if you guys are going through adversity, either now or you will be. It's never going away.
Yeah.
The book that I wrote is not only diving into my story, but also like giving a formula and helping you create awareness in your own life so that you can identify it, and then there's a formula to move through the adversity, and it's powerful. So I'm really excited about it, and I'd love if your listeners grab a copy and check out the podcast. You've been on it, probably get you on it again. University of Adversity. We had a great chat last time, and it'd be fun to have you on again to talk about all things. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So where can people find you?
Yeah, just go to my website, lancesios.com, in University of Adversity podcast. But everything is at my website, lancesios.com, or my Instagram, lance.esios.
Amazing.
The old IG.
Obviously put all that in
that's in the show notes.
Show notes. Yeah. I'll put it there. Just like the audio version of it too.
Yeah. Super easy.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
if you can spell my last, actually it's easy to search me anyways.
I can spell your last name. I'm gonna give it a whirl right now, actually. Now I'm gonna screw it up. I'm like uncertain about one letter, but I'm gonna say it's either one or two S's in the beginning, but I'm going to go with Esshios.
Close. You missed an I. Essihos. You missed Essihos. Very close.
I put the I after the H. I don't know why I did that. I goes before. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so good. I almost won a spelling bee when I was like in third grade, so I pride myself on that. In my dad's brain, he can spell really well. My mom, not so much, but yeah. Anyways, but thank you so much for chatting and for such a, diving into all those different topics today.
Wow.
I really appreciate
we covered a lot. Thank you so much for having me on. I hope all your listeners got value from it. And
totally.
Wow. There was a lot there.
There was. Thanks, Lance. If you loved this episode, please download, share, rate, and review. If you are ready to step into that next level version of you and grow your business and bank account, it's time to unleash your goddess magic and chase life with Kelly. You can start this epic expansion journey by diving into the Goddess Magic course bundle found at chaselifetogether.com. Please connect with me on Instagram at Chase Life with Kelly. Join the Chase Life with Kelly Facebook community and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Till next time, create the life you crave, babe, and chase life with Kelly.